Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome back to the capital ship, now with some rather major changes. As you can probably already see, off camera, I've been a little bit busy. As much as I loved the concept of the previous bridge having a fortress in the middle, which was essentially like a regular fortress without any aerodynamic elements to it, I realised very quickly after the last episode, while trying to make it a bit more stylised, it simply wouldn't work unless the entire ship had the same kind of style, in the sense of perhaps one of the Onyx Watch's fortress ships, like the Kingstead, or one of the other ones with names I can't quite remember. So, I've been a little bit busy altering it around. We have a actual command bridge now, which looks decent. I still want to change quite a few things in here. It's nowhere near done, but for now it's a very decent placeholder. We also have the Great Hall, which will act as the very centre of the middle structure here, and will enable you to, in style, get to the different levels of the ship. Again, nowhere near finished. It looks a bit too empty at the moment, making it have the kind of appearance of, well, something that's been forced there. But the most important thing is that we've started work on these two sections here, although it doesn't look like much at the moment. Down here is going to be the submarine dock. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually make it able to create other subs, like the Trilobite, but it very well may do. At minimum, it's going to hold a submarine for the battle, with the top piece here being a torpedo launcher, and I've decided I'm going to have a torpedo launcher system on the edge at the back here, and the front here, which, well, just has space, which will only fire at enemies below the water level, so basically it's a sub-killer, because I'm starting to have problems with those in the campaign. What else have I done? What else have I done? Just loads of little changes like that, a massive change in style, and honestly, I'm not quite sure where I'm going with the front here. I'm either going to make it look very open, very much like this area over here, somewhere to walk on, or it's going to be a heavily fortified metal front, which slowly spikes down to about here, thus leaving it in the water and giving a third spike to the ship. That may happen, and if it does, I'll most likely have little viewing platforms on the side, so that it still has the feel of something which has been made more so for luxury of the owner than sheer combat, but of course, still having a certain combat feel. The sides here, however, are what we're going to be doing right now. These are going to house the laser weaponry, or perhaps just another cannon. I'm not sure just yet. So let's get started and see how this thing goes. Hardly surprising at this point, but I've decided to change my mind once more. The top section here will no longer be used for a turret. The main reason is, this section here is going to be so high, as this bit here above the Great Hall will actually be higher than the command bridge, that honestly a turret here makes even less sense than this one here. So instead I've done something simple but space efficient. There we go. We have missile bays. Yes, indeed. Of course, currently no missiles are in here. It's still the walkway. But the inside of here will be home to our cruise missiles. And probably a big damage dealer of this ship. So that's pretty darn awesome. It obviously closes when an enemy is not here and opens up when an enemy is present. I do need to, however, make a delay. So when the enemies vanish, it takes a little while to close. As there's a good chance the missiles will keep on firing long after the enemy is dead, because a missile system keeps on firing until the last missile has been shot, sadly, if it's all part of one system, which it most likely will be. I've also decided on a pattern at long last, and I just saw an error in the pattern, but still, a pattern on the side here to make it look a little bit more fortified, but still trying to keep the industrial look as much as possible. So, with all that in place, and the new plans being laid out, now we need to figure out where the turrets are actually going to go. The back section here will most likely still be laser weaponry, almost definitely back here will be home to that, because this will also lend itself to a lot of empty space, which of course we can run the laser system through, so we can have some really, really devastating weapons. And on the top, we could mount a cannon, or two cannons, actually on top of the Great Hall, in replacement for the cannons which were meant to go here. So it's all slowly falling into place, and eventually we will have the end design. but I am trying to keep the sides quite low. I like the fact it's quite low to the main hull, to the deck at least, so it all seems a bit more, I don't know, not streamline isn't the word, just neat. It looks neat. There is such a thing as adding too much armor, so of course right now with this design the big weakness is the fact the middle section is very weakly attached to the outside. So to fix this there will be some underwater segments attaching itself to the outside segments just to make sure this bit doesn't fall off, considering it's going to have a lot of very important stuff in it. But also two major connection points are the bridges from the Great Hall over to the top floor of the decking, and I've got a bit of a problem. If I try to heavily fortify it too much, it ends up going back to the same style as I had previously, which I kind of decided against, and that's the style of being very heavily armoured, very castle-like, and I just don't know, it's not working out. This is the fourth attempt now at doing this bridge, and I think I'm going to just have to bite the bullet and accept these won't be too heavily armoured and probably thin them out a little bit, have them a bit more glass heavy, have some glass on the side here so you can see out, have pillars as opposed to having the solid wall segment, and just make it look a whole lot nicer. Although saying that, it is growing on me, because each time I've done it, it looks a little bit better than before, because it does match the armoured style of the side here, because of course this is a way of hiding an extra layer of armour, since I do want to kind of encroach a little bit further inside here, so that this centrepiece doesn't get completely knocked out by the first aerial bombardment. So, I'm not sure yet. I'll probably just leave the the hallways as they are for now, until I've decided on how the top of this area is actually going to look, because it might look a bit better once it actually matches the rest of the ship a little bit more. Or perhaps just adding a bit of wood here and there might help. I mean, changing these bits of wall to a wooden section, then wooden section on the top ceiling here, because, well, this is actually 4 thick of metal. Again, this is a major strong point. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Which has actually been the main thing I've been saying this entire build, honestly. Variable thrusters can do some very, very weird things. Well, it's time to test out the missiles. Originally, I ended up making a swarm missile type, as in lots of missiles released at once, all going at a single target, spreading out before they actually hit the enemy. And although it was amazing to watch, it really wasn't very effective, as missiles just don't do very well when they're all clumped together in this game. They do a lot better when they're spread out as much as possible, and they have a certain delay between each shot. So instead, we're going to be testing out something a little bit different. So we'll be spawning in a bulwark just for this test, which will most likely destroy half of the ship, as it has absolutely no defences at the moment. But I just want to see if the missiles can at least do some damage versus this. They have variable thrusters and are very good at long range. Again, they are similar to what the Widow has, just not quite as strong per shot. And there are a lot of them. So think better than the Bunkers missiles, but a lot worse than the Widows. And yet, tearing apart whatever they're aiming at with a almost constant fire rate, that's absolutely perfect. Oh yeah, that is absolutely that's just absolutely eradicate the side of it with just one full volley, and there goes the second volley now. I do love my missiles, and there is something beautiful about that. All spreading out just before they hit the targets, doing a lot of damage to a wide area. Exactly what I wanted to see. Okay, so let's continue to build then. Let's figure out how this is going to attach to the back section. I'll probably do a little bit of tweaking with the missiles, as I'm not 100% happy with them, but even so, that is just beautiful. A progress update. Okay, so a lot has happened, most of it not really too visual, but a lot has happened. I've updated the missiles, so they now go 1,500 meters and have 3 warheads, making them more powerful than the Bunkers missiles, if a little bit slower, so it's power over speed there. So, not the best anti-air, but really good versus heavily fortified ships like the Bulwark, like the Alcazar. Basically, it breaks through metal, but good luck trying to hit anything fast with it. So I'm happy enough with that. For now, the missiles I will class as being done. I have then went ahead and almost finished off the Great Hall, and by the way, there's going to be a lot of almost finished in this little section. But yeah, that's the way of things with large builds. You kind of have to build everything up together, because otherwise you can finish one thing and then realise it doesn't match, like the old command bridge and stuff. So yeah, this bit here is done, at least to the extent I'm happy with it. I'm going to be adding a lot more colouring to it, a lot more bits and bobs to make it look a bit more real, a bit more used, but it's nice enough. You can walk around in it, you can get to the top, you can get to the bottom. Eventually there'll be a room here attaching it to the AI room as soon as that's finished. I like it, it looks cool, and it makes it look a bit more roomy, as this doesn't really serve much purpose other than just moving around, which is rather nice. I have also started the bowels of the ship. Now this is going to be a little bit difficult because it all depends on how I use this space here. If this is truly going to be a submarine dock, then there's going to be a few issues with it needing a lot of the stuff here, a lot of the hardware, a lot of the spawners and tentacles, the healing tentacles, all need to be here, so again, one of those things I just need to build up later. But for now, we can attach these and everything will be good, meaning we can go to the engine room, we can go up to the main hall, and all the way to the AI. Hurrah! Which leads me to the final bit, and honestly, quite a big problem. This section here, this lovely kind of rectangle of metal. There's like 3 or 4 ideas I have for this, and all of them can't be used together, and that's the big issue. My first idea is to attach this all the way to the metal over here, the command bridge, in this kind of height, and then use it as a kind of hangar, thus able to create and sustain a small fleet at all times with the main ship, with the capital ship. These will be things like the Serpent, the upgraded Serpent, which I still haven't used in a video, which are made literally just to be spawned in, because the AI has been set up that way. So that's one thing we can do. We can have ships, well, planes constantly being spawned here, aircraft, maybe even a helicopter if I ever build it. Basically, a little air base on the back, which is rather cool and does make the capital ship seem a little bit more like a capital ship. The second option is to use this massive amount of space for a ridiculous laser weapon. This could even be a continuous laser because of the amount of space we have, which is really cool. And if I managed to make the turret look decent, it wouldn't even have the ugly aesthetic of the laser, so that's a secondary thing. And the third thing, of course, is something like I mentioned earlier. We just build a huge advanced cannon and have a mortar gun or some kind of rapid fire, well, not a railgun, because railguns still aren't working correctly at the moment. They're a little bit weird. A lot of people are avoiding them at the moment, and I'm kind of in the same boat. They just don't do what they should do. But we have something like a rapid-fire gun, like we had earlier, back when it was an old command bridge. Something like that, but a bit more sustainable. Ideas, ideas, ideas. Okay, so there we are. We've shelled out the very basic shape of the Great Hall's wall and ceiling, and now we can finally make a final decision on how we're going to go about this section. I think, and I'm going to try my best to do 2 of the 3 options. I'm going to have a laser weapon, basically installed in here, because we don't have quite enough space for the massive turret I would like, and then have that on the top somewhere here. I'm not sure, again, how I'm going to go about this because of this, like, riveted section, which I do want to continue, but ultimately I do think we've got just about enough space for a laser of the strength I'm looking for. So going to try that as best I can, have a center laser, because, well, lasers are fantastic weapons, and they're quite easy to do well. It's very hard making a large laser bad, it really is. If you've got all that space and you fill it, even if you fill it badly, you end up with a decent weapon. It's really the way of things, unless you really, really mess up. But I digress. So yeah, we'll have the laser, we'll have that there and coming out the top, and again, nowhere near finished with my choices of how I'm going to do that. And then, at the back here, we will have our hangar able to create flyers. The big problem with this, of course, is it means we have a major weapon and aircraft both on a very similar level, which is a little bit nerve-wracking, but I think a bit of friendly fire here and there just adds to the excitement of battle. So let's try and partition this off. How much space am I going to give the laser? Well, if we're going to do it in the way I think I am, we're going to have the bottom of each laser tendril, as I'm going to call it, at the bottom here. So it's going to lasers. Okay, so what I'm looking at is the cavity itself, and then laser pumps. So this is the kind of space each line will want. It'll be a, there we are, a 3x3 essentially, which we can interlock and will be interlocking. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a load of these on the floor to decide the size of and best shape we can have, and then each tendril will attach to a combiner at the top, which will then of course attach to the turret via a, where are you my beautiful thing, a laser connector and laser transceiver. So it's all in here, shoots up a laser to the top, but then we have a turret here which fires the laser to destroy everything nearby. I don't think I'll be able to have a continuous laser because I don't think I really have enough space for this, but I should have enough for a decent pulse laser, so that's what we'll try and do. So that's the space there, so 3x3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, about here-ish then. Okay, so let's put down a little marker here just as a rough, let's try to build it in this space so that we can have some under stuff here for the ship. We can have the repair tentacles hidden in a under section here, making this a little bit thicker, and of course I do want this to look sturdy, so that's why we need the space to add decorations to either attach it to the outside hull or attach it to the main body itself. So many choices, and I'm really not sure this is the best way to go about it, but I really want both of these options. The prototype laser is ready for its first true test. I have just used it with all of the other weapon systems currently online, and it did pretty darn well. However, it didn't really let me see just how well it was doing in terms of crippling the enemy vehicle, because it was destroyed by missile and cannon fire a bit too quick. So instead, we've turned off all of the other AI, and we're only using the laser. Let's see how it does against the Onyx Watch's only thruster craft. I'm really hoping this does well, honestly, because this should be strong enough. Well, that did better than expected. Okay, something's already blew up on the inside, and choosing the next target, something else has gone. Wow, yeah, that was... AI dead, it's already killed it. That is already dead. That was... ridiculous. Well done, green, blue, and red. I will eventually pick a colour I actually prefer, but they're all the extremes you can go to, the three primary colours, of course. Honestly, that was impressive considering the limited amount of space we had. Well, not small amount of space, admittedly, but limited in terms of how I wanted it originally. We could have that faster shooting, or perhaps a couple more firing pieces, but that was just unbelievably good. Now, okay, this is going to go badly. Just putting it out there, this is going to go badly because the enemy is going to kill us before we actually have a chance to deal any major damage to it. But we're going to summon in an Alcazar, and I'm doing this because I want to make sure I've done the AI correctly. It should have aim point selection, as it just shown off. It did actually do that really well. It took out the AI and its ammo storages almost instantly, but it should ignore things which are underneath the water, essentially meaning it will never actually kill the Alcazar, because the Alcazar has the AI underwater, but I want to see where it aims if it can't fire at something. Let's see how it actually works. Okay, something in the Alcazar, and it's aiming at something at least. Okay, it's going for the bit... Ooh, it's actually firing underwater. Okay. Bit of a problem there. It should be not firing at anything below altitude 0, but it still is. Admittedly, it's so strong, it seems to be shrugging off most of the water's effects, purely because how powerful it is. However, as you can see there, it's still vastly blunted, so that's something I've clearly done wrong and need to fix right away before we start armoring this thing up and calling it done. So here we are. Are we doing anything wrong? The minimum altitude to engage is at 0, so you'd imagine anything underwater. Oh, I see the problem. That's the enemy's altitude, so it won't fire at submarines, but it will still fire at a vessel if their altitude counts as being over. It's not a matter of the actual block it's aiming at, it's the enemy it's aiming at. And of course, because the Alcazar was above water mostly, it simply started firing. So let's see if we can spawn in an enemy underwater. What do we have underwater? So submarines, there we go. Spawn in a saw shark. Hopefully it'll actually spawn in underwater already. Nope. Laser, don't. No, the laser's not firing at it because the enemy is counted as being underwater. Okay, so it won't fire at subs. It will still have a problem, like all other lasers, ow, with firing at things which are underwater, at least half underwater. So, is there a way around that is the question. I don't actually know. Well, after consulting some forums and having a look around, it does seem that this is just an issue of lasers. They don't deal with things being half underwater overly well, so I'm not sure where I'm going to go with that. It may just be something we're going to have to accept, that this gun will not deal well with enemies which have a majority of their body currently underwater, so things like the Alcazar and the Bulwark might actually have a distinct advantage against this laser, which, although it's not a nice thought, we can of course compensate by having things like the other weapons be able to, well, you know, destroy them. So it's still going to be okay, we're just going to have to deal with it in another way. Because thankfully though, it does seem like the laser is so powerful, it does shrug off most of the negative effect. I mean, look at that. Still a lot weaker than it was versus the flying enemy, and of course we can set it so its priority is to fire at things which are either flying or above a certain level, but still. Okay, so that's a good enough test there. The laser is definitely powerful enough, and I will look into other ways to make this a bit more effective against half-submerged enemies. It's time to try and make it look decent. Let's see if we can perhaps armor it up in a nice way. As always, lasers are easily the most difficult weapon to make look decent as part of a turret. The main problem is that the laser optics themselves are less than attractive. They definitely show their age more than the other textures in the game. They look a little bit rough around the edges, and ultimately I don't like their style much either. They're a bit too much like a weird stalk, which suits the kind of lore they're going for, but definitely isn't too attractive, at least in my opinion. So what I tend to do is smother them in armor, try to make it look a bit more sci-fi, and in this case, make it look a bit like a plasma weapon. But that itself leads to a whole host of problems. The main problem being that the entire structure kind of moves together, if that makes any sense, because of course the point of turn is somewhere near the middle. It does make it look like the entire turret is one giant piece of metal that's kind of hovering when it turns. A regular cannon turret, on the other hand, it's very obvious where the point of turn is, and the barrel does look like, well, a barrel. This thing looks like one solid turret piece, which kind of floats a little bit, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure I explained that really well. So I'm definitely going to do a bit more... Wow, that might actually kill me. No, it's AI dead. Okay, yeah, so I'm definitely going to do a little bit more sculpting on the turret itself. I'm not happy with it just yet, but at least we're getting there. I've kind of got the vague idea sorted in my head, so it just needs me to, well, redesign it a couple of times. But anyway, I'm afraid I'm all out of time for today's episode, and I do want to very briefly apologise for how long this video has taken to actually get out. As many of you already know, over on Twitter and Facebook, I have been talking about it. I caught pneumonia last week and have been remarkably ill for the last 6 or 7 days, so I haven't really been able to record things which require a lot of effort or long recording sessions. From the Depths being the ultimate long recording session, it's been near impossible. So expect 2 videos of From the Depths a week from now on. It's just been a bit of a blip. So with that, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's episode and are enjoying From the Depths as a series, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths is a series you wish to see continued in the future. And if you have any suggestions about what I should do with the hangar back here, or the large empty space on the back half of the vehicle, feel free to tell me. I do like reading your suggestions, as some of you can be rather insightful. So thank you again, and goodbye.